I think these are perilous times we're in right now. In the last 20 years with the industry, timber industry and livestock industry, I don't know if they're just getting more desperate because times are getting harder for everybody to survive. But I think the multiple uses of the forest are being pushed to extremes, and this is an even more important time to try and make sure that the plate is leveled on all sides for all multiple uses, including enjoyment and quiet and solitude for the public.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to drive here at 60 miles an hour. To do the scenery half justice, people should drive 20 or under. To do it full justice, they should get out and walk. When we got together as an organization and we thought about a name, Norbeck Society ended up being what we named ourselves. Within a year or so, we got emails from descendants of Peter Norbeck. They were really excited that we took his name, and we were quite relieved to hear that.
So the Norbeck Society is an organization that I've been affiliated with for 20 years, since we were founded in 2005. We've got a lot of scientists, geology, botany, we've got educators, people that know about volunteering and doing work on the ground in forest settings. Basically, anyone that loves the idea of sustainable use of our public lands is our constituents.
In the U.S. Forest Service, around 2004, we were having public hearings. And there were hearings about the Black Hills National Forest and sustainable management of it, protecting the environment, motorized travel, which they saw as a concern at that time. Elaine Ebbett was there testifying to the organization. Becky Rowe was there also. One of the Forest Service supervisors had pulled Becky aside and said, "We need an organization that promotes your interests for the Black Hills." And so Elaine and Becky got together and hauled me in because I knew both of them, Bob Burns as well. And so the four of us sort of got together. We established an organization called Friends of the Forest. So Friends of the Forest was basically incorporated into the Norbeck Society.
Back then, the off-highway rules that the Forest Service had were everything is open unless posted closed. People generally thought that was fine because they were talking about roads. Then when ATVs came along and had the ability to go anywhere, all of a sudden there was a lot of travel off-road. And that became a big issue. The Forest Service often hired me to try and block these off-road trails, placing rocks in front of roads, but it was kind of like whack-a-mole. I mean, you could stop them from going down a road, but they could go around the barrier and go anywhere they wanted. So it was a difficult position for the Forest Service because the rules were there. In, 2004, I believe, Elaine Ebbett, who was one of our founding members, asked me if I would take her up to the headwaters of Botany Canyon because she wanted to show a newspaper reporter. So we went up and we hiked down and we started finding pieces of vehicles. And then down where the stream starts and it comes out of a cliff, it's just pure water coming out of a cliff, we could see ATV tracks through the pools running around and discovered that people had been driving the length of the creek, which was just amazing to us. That got it into the newspapers immediately. And for years, people have been trying to get the Forest Service to close that area off. But it's the dividing line between two Forest Service districts. And it just happened because I did so much work for the Forest Service. I knew all these guys, and they were at a meeting about off-road travel. And after the meeting, I got both rangers together and said, you know, you've been reading these stories about Botany Canyon. How about if we go take a hike? And they agreed to do that. And that relationship with them was kind of integral when it came to stopping the off-road travel in Botany Canyon. And we ended up forming an event with the off-road groups who also agreed that travel in Botany Canyon was not a good thing. They didn't even realize it was happening. They agreed to put up a barricade at the upper end. At the same time, we worked out a kind of a project for an Eagle Scout to get his badge to put up a gate at the lower end. It got done in one day, and since then, there has been no off-road travel down the creek. And it was nice to have groups that you might think have divergent priorities working together to do something that they all thought was right.
Well, we kind of have three prongs that we carry our mission through. One is education. So we have educational outings. We do programs on Zoom and in person at places like the outdoor campus. Then public involvement and outreach. Our steering committee members and our members at large get involved in programs that other organizations are offering. We've always had a member or two that are on the National Forest Advisory Board.
Communication and public comments is one of the most important things we do, and it's something the Forest Service appreciates. When you have an organization that is a local environmental organization like the Norbeck Society, our voice can have more effect, and we try to comment about almost everything the Forest Service does that they want public comments on. We try and send in a comment, usually well thought out and well done.
When we volunteer on a project with Forest Service, we usually just tend to put out the fact that if you've got anything you'd like help with, let us know. We can advertise with our members and get a group for you to do some work on the ground.
Doing volunteer projects, it came up early on. The first few of them was fencing off areas that the Forest Service would like to keep people out of, for instance, black fox. They provide the posts and we put up the post and rail fences. But it expanded. The ones I remember the most were putting bridges up, where the Forest Service hauled in these bridges, which were treated beams, probably 60 feet long, flown in by helicopter. So you'd have maybe 8 people picking up this beam, carrying it up to a mile or a mile and a half, and placing it across the creek. And so building bridges got to be kind of fun. We built not only those, we helped the Forest Service put up similar bridges right below Sheridan Lake.
Mark Zimmerman was instrumental in leading field trips, and that was another really good thing to get people together, to get them out into the hills or into the Badlands or even into the Bighorns of Wyoming, and to learn about the world around us.
I decided at that point that I could lead outings, and that turns out to be an impossibility. So I instigated outings. Eventually I realized that's all I was doing was instigating things. So yeah, about a year in, I started instigating outings for the Norbeck Society. And over the next decade, did 59, 60 if you count the one that got hailed out, but we took one guy for a long walk anyway. Actually, that was a memorable day because I stood on a rattlesnake, which is a really bad feeling, which I can still feel right now at this moment. It comes back to me anytime I think about it. If you're going to stand on a rattlesnake, stand on his neck and head. I only ever left 4 people behind. I think there were 790 some people who were on a outing. 4 out of 790 some. Your odds of getting, guided to the end are pretty good. I knew I liked to hike, and I knew I loved the wilderness. What I didn't anticipate was how much I was going to like the people who came along. Dozens and dozens of friends. And it's dozens of people who've made Norbeck an effective organization. They've continued to do the Elaine Everett Botanical Wonder Crawls. Elaine was a founding member, and her spirit still guides a lot of what happens in the Norbeck Society.
I feel like we've taken 20 years to really build up this strong, well-known, appreciated, well-thought-of organization.
I think it's very important for young people to be involved in the National Forest. At one time, we had a member who had young kids, and he set up a Norbeck youth group. And they went on field trips, and he would hide little paper creatures along the way, and you got a prize if you found one. And he would always have some sort of expert in what we were doing in a botanist coming along, talking to the kids. It's more important to have young people involved than old people, in my opinion, because they're the ones that are going to be here and be affected by the forest.
I wish I could say that our work was all done. It seems like there's more to do than ever. There have been stirrings about maybe, getting rid of public lands, privatizing them. So even just this year, the number one thing on our plate was just to, we called our campaign, Keep Our Public Lands Public. We're dealing with timber harvests that are unsustainable right now, and that's very complex. We've got kind of a wish list on grazing practices. We have another whole wish list with travel management, the conditions of surface waters in Wind Cave National Park. We keep talking about the Black Hills National Forest, but public lands would include a lot of other entities too.
Norbeck's made a difference on the ground in the Black Hills, made a difference in how things have been logged, how things have been grazed, how the water flows free. And Norbeck has done that to incredible effect. And it's the people that made the difference.
You look out there and you see bazillion trees. And yet if you get on some roads, you don't see any trees. And sometimes that's a forest fire, sometimes it's logging, sometimes it's bugs. But in the long run, the more people that know about how the forest works and appreciate how it works, the better off they will be and the better off the forest will be.